Well, hello, everybody. Welcome again. My name is Jim Codney. I'm National Sales Director here at Western Marketing. Really excited about today and about this webinar, and I'll tell you why here in just a moment. Really quickly, though, a couple housekeeping rules. First of all, week 7 of a 9-week annuity series, and Sean and I are already working on actually adding more. They may not be consecutive adding on to this, but we're already adding more trainings for those of you who have been on this webinar or are interested. But one piece of information in case you didn't know, all of these webinars are recorded. They're on our YouTube page. You should receive an email with information about what we're talking about today, as well as a link to that YouTube page with all of the series of videos from this series. So if you missed one, have questions, forgot something, feel free to check those out. Secondly, we're here for you, pardon me. Definitely not lost on Sean or I that when you're sitting through these, you're growing your knowledge, your confidence on annuities, but you aren't out actually in appointments, putting food on the table, paying bills. We're gonna rock and roll through this, hopefully give you some very valuable information and then set you on your way. With that, our only request is that if you have questions, please ask them. We are here for you, and if you don't ask what's in your head, we won't be able to help you. So really excited because we actually, on top of Sean, we're going to introduce you to a special guest here a little later in the webinar today, and want to have you talk to a real agent who, we'll get into his background when we introduce him, but we'll just say is starting to put in this training into his business and starting to see success. So we'll get to that soon. But before then, as always, want to introduce a good friend, mentor, partner, Sean Ruggiero. Sean, hi.
Hey Jim, how you doing? Thanks for having me today. Great intro, and because I do like the fact that we have Ben on, and Ben is real world scenarios. You and I can talk to a blue in the face. We're paid to do that. But I like other agents, and that's the best thing about it. That's what you want. I like other agents translating how it worked for them, where they were stumbling, where they were finding success. I've discovered so many nuggets here in agents. It's how I've grown over the last 21 years doing this. So everybody understand this. I'm going to go through one more annuity scenario that was a real scenario that came through and show you the solution that was presented by Jim and the Ask a Specialist team. I'm going to do it relatively quickly because it is a simple scenario, and I love simple scenarios. And then we're going to go into a couple of scenarios that Ben has been submitting. So I also want to mention in regards to future webinars, Jim hit the nail on the head. It might not be sequential. It might not be every Tuesday. We're trying to do a ramp up and prepare you. But then we will have some really good webinar topics that come up, and we will schedule it usually on Thursday. This is kind of a spot we've set aside. But please ask Jim, ask myself. I mean, Jim will be the conduit. Are there any topics you'd like to see covered? So there's questions, and then there's full topics. So if you say, I feel this is great, but I really need a webinar on how to do X or Y, or why this exists, or what this, what this challenge might be, please let us know. Okay, so with that being said, I am going to now switch to my screen. Jim, can you see my screen?
We see scenario 2. Yep.
Okay, good. So we covered scenario 1 last week. Let's talk about scenario 2. And scenario 2 is submitted to Jim's team. It is through the Ask a Specialist. And Jim, I'm not going to go back to the Western Marketing website. I think they've seen it enough times to see, click on the Annuity Resource Center, click on the Ask a Specialist. And of course, the preamble of that is that you sat down with a client and you discovered that they had some money to protect, some retirement to protect. So this is a 68-year-old female in Arkansas, okay, the natural state. Lump sum of $276,000. Now let's explain that. And again, when you submit an Ask a Scenario, you might know where the money's coming from, you might not. Ask as many questions as you can, but don't be afraid to submit something that you're not totally sure on what it is. I think one of the key things that we need to remember is be very, very verbose in the comments. Explain as much as you can. I mean, we don't necessarily need to know the name of their dog or that they had 6 goldfish, but give us a lot of information because it really, really helps. So the money was coming from a traditional IRA. We did know that. And the client was interested in safe growth, was best possible returns, and they wanted immediate lifetime income. And of course, they were wanting to leave money as a legacy. Now, the reason you see these different client interests is because they're checkboxes. So when you're asking clients, and that's why I like the idea of just pulling that up, the Ask a Specialist, or having it printed out, you could ask them those questions. Hey, when I submit this to our centralized team through a secure portal, we have a bunch of experts that are going to show us the best solution for your scenario. See, it takes that burden off you. You don't have to be the expert. You're the conduit. You're the licensed agent that's going to help them out. You've got a team of experts that are going to help you out. So ask them those. And you're oftentimes going to get people who say, I want everything. I want safe growth. I want lifetime income, et cetera, et cetera. But then you're going to find out more when you see what you're actually dealing with. And that's where I want to dissect this $276,000. So Jim, what we had here is obviously a client that had 2 different IRAs, if we recall. And I actually should have left the name out there. We try not to put names of companies. I'm sorry. I left it in there. My error, my bad, right? Omit that. Redact that from your vision there. But the client has 2 different IRAs. One IRA was holding the bulk of the money, as I recall. It was $202,000 out of the 276. $202,000 was already with an annuity company, and they were taking lifetime income of $1,040 a month. Okay. The remaining $74,000, they were leaving it to grow for emergencies, maybe for end-of-life health care, or to pass on to their loved ones. So they were actually, I mean, this is not a lot of money. And Jim, I don't know the total scenario, but this is oftentimes representative of someone who has worked decades to save up this money. So not a lot of money to someone else is a lot of money to this client. It's always relative. So this is a very straightforward scenario. Can you help me get a higher income because I live off this 1,040, and can you do something for that 74,000 to grow it in the future that is better than what I have? So that is what was typed in the comments. The client was looking for peace of mind, and they spelled peace wrong. I just kept it right in there, right? You know, peace of mind. It's actually PEACE, obviously, but I just took this raw straight from what they had when it was submitted over to Jim and his team. But the client is looking for peace of mind when it comes to the retirement income, money that they worked hard to save. She wants to roll over an annuity with the hopes of not losing money and to gain maximum growth from the 75K or increase her income on the 202,000. So Jim, not to get too much in the weeds, but a lot of FIAs, fixed index annuities, that were taken out in the previous decade, they were taken out when interest rates were very, very low. So interest rates being low mean that the annuity companies have very small budgets to buy options. And so they don't perform as well as they do now because interest rates are so high over the last 24 months or so. So what we chose was the F&G Safe Income Advantage. Now, when you're all going to have a webinar, correct, Jim, we're scheduling a webinar with F&G. We don't know the exact date. And they're going to show you their 2 best products. And one of them is the Safe Income Advantage. It's actually, as of today, the highest income FIA in existence. So if you look at all of them, this one is paying out the highest paycheck. So we did a real simple illustration. Jim and his team simply said, what is the surrender value? They had the ability to look at the current annuity statement. It was $202,000. So if that client is making $1,040, right? Let's go back to this. They're making $1,040 every month, and they have $202,000 if they surrendered that. What would we be able to do? Well, I want to point something out. This is the guaranteed rates. I don't sell income annuities that often. I like accumulation annuities with some flexibility, but this is a client that had a pension, Social Security, and this income. They absolutely wanted a paycheck for life. So what we did is Jim shopped it around, found the best return. That was the F&G Safe Income Advantage, and it gave this person $16,685 per year. Now notice this is guaranteed. This is if the market, look at the crediting rates here in column 6, 0. It doesn't matter what it's credited. And these income annuities aren't designed to accumulate a lot. They're designed to give you the best paycheck for the rest of your life. So here we go. The client turns around, they take $202,000, they're guaranteed $16,685. If you break that down to a monthly payment, Jim, that's over $1,300. It's close to $1,400, right? So I think my daughter at 2 years old could tell me which is higher, $1,300, $1,350, or $1,040, $1,350. They literally just got a paycheck. You want to talk about the easiest sales pitch ever? Jim, I didn't even include other slides on this. And we have the backup illustrations. If you want them, Jim has them. You can dissect them and waste your time doing that. And I'm not being facetious. I'm just saying there are scenarios that are sometimes just that simple. And this is one of them. So this was pushed forward. It was actually submitted through Firelight. The app is going through for approval. And, you know, I don't want to talk exact numbers, but that's a pretty good payday on $200,000. And you're going to sleep well at night because you just gave that person a $250 raise every single month. You gave them a $250,000 raise every single month, guaranteed for the rest of their life. And that's not reliant at all on what the illustrated rate is. Okay, so Jim, that was the first part, right? We solved that, but remember that $74,000? We chose a product that, this is just my subjective opinion, but it has objective reasoning. It's my favorite product. I write this product more than any other product out there, and it is the Athene Performance Elite. Now, there's qualified money. So qualified money, you don't want to take a lot out. They just want to save it as much as they can. They want to save it, right, Jim? But at age 72, Jim, tell everybody what happens with qualified money, right? With an IRA, a 401k, what happens at age 72?
Start taking RMDs.
Exactly. Required minimum distributions. So as much as you want to create a legacy and pass it on and bless this lady for wanting to do that, you know, I think my mom gives me, I'll inherit, you know, maybe $500,000 of debt. This person's trying to give people money when she dies. The Performance Elite is so powerful because I want you to see where I've circled in red or I've highlighted in red. Those are not circles, they're rectangles. I do understand that. But this is the guarantee. Even if the market went down every month, for every year, for the rest of this person's life, they're going to receive a 15% bonus. There's no fees on this, by the way. 15% bonus, not to some LIBOR account, Jim, not to some fake roll-up account, cash. So the $74,000 is immediately credited with $11,100. Immediately. And now look, at age 72, you see that, Jim, at 2030, she flips over and has to take out the RMDs. So she takes out 3,200 and 3,200 and 7,700. Now we're wasting a lot of time here, Jim, because this is based on a situation where the market never returned anything any month, every year for the rest of her life. Well, if that were the case, she probably picked the best product in history, because even though that happens, she would not lose any money and she would have gained the bonus. Right? She would have taken out 70, let's say she lived to 97. And I'm just saying that for being able to point to this illustration at the bottom. She would have taken out $73,000 and she would still have $20,600 as a death benefit or cash to do whatever she wants with. But let's not waste our time talking about something that's not going to happen, because we just don't believe that the market's going to go down every month, every year for the rest of our life. Well, that brings us to, and this is something that we touched on last week. And Jim, I think sometimes people aren't listening really closely, or maybe I speak poorly. So please interject or correct me if I'm being confusing. But we have to be careful of running amok with hyper illustration returns. Okay? As I said last week, the market will probably not do what it did before. The yields that we're using now for the option costs that were done previously in look-back periods can make these interest rates look really good. It is not likely, in fact, I could say it's highly unlikely, that anything that illustrates at 12%, 14%, 70% is not going to perform at that. So please temper it. Now, I want to show you something. Athene has something very cool, and we're going to have a theme on one of these webinars, right, Jim? We're going to have a theme. We're going to have F&G. We're going to have some of these top carriers explain their products and be available for question and answering. But Athene's products are so well priced. They have such great yield and such great leverage and arbitrage that their illustrated rates are through the roof. So if you just illustrated this, and Jim, there are people who do this. I don't think you should, okay? But if you just illustrated this, it's going to show a really high rate of return as backcasting. And now the RMDs are really good. So now if she lived to 95, she would have taken out almost $600,000 and still have $700,000 left over. I mean, by the math, that's what it's doing, but the reality is that's probably not what's going to happen. So here's what I strongly suggest. And again, Jim, I thought I talked about this last week. Tell me if this isn't clear. Please temper their expectations, because if not, it's going to come back on you. That's why I love straight S&P. I like caps. I like simple to understand indexes. Stay away from those engineered or synthetic illustrations or indexes if you can. And if you can't, meaning that they are solid indexes, temper the client's expectations. So here's the cool thing about Athene. They allow you to check a box and say, I just want to give an override illustrated rate. I want to assign my own rate. So Jim, you know what I always do? I do 5%. 5%. Right? I think that's fair. I think if the market, if you look at total returns in the market, TR, including dividends, 8.5 to 10% is the average. Okay, if you look at the S&P, if you look at the market, okay, we participate in half, 60%, something like that. I think that's a very fair assessment, and it sets their brain the correct way. So what I like to do is I like to check that box and just type in 5%. I know some agents that do 4%. I know some agents that do 6 or 7%. Hey, listen. At least they need to know and understand the client. You're not going to get all the market gains, and you're certainly not going to beat the market. If the market performs, you get some of it, okay? And right now, it's a great time to buy a fixed index annuity because we have so much yield to work with that our participation, that sum of it that I'm speaking to, is actually pretty darn high. So let's say, Mrs. Smith, I'm making up the lady's name, you take that $74,000, and it was growing in a, she had it in an IRA money market account. Now those actually exist. So she was making like 3%. Well, you're going to get 11, or you're going to get 15% day one, Mrs. Smith. And then you will have to take out RMDs. And I know you don't want to because you want to pass this on as legacy money, but you don't know. You might need that money, and heck, it's your money. So as the RMDs come out, did you know that you could gift up to $15,000 per year to as many people as you want until you reach the limit, which is what, like 5 million now or 3 million? You know, she's not going to get there, so we don't have to worry about that as far as lifetime gifting exemptions. But now we see a more realistic scenario. So now at age 73, she's taking her first RMDs from the previous year. It's 4,000, and then it slowly grows to 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. So watch, by the time she gets 96 years old, she put that $74,000 in. She never, ever had to worry about the market loss. War in Europe, terrorist attack in New York, tsunami takes out California, nuclear disaster in Japan, it doesn't matter. She could sleep well at night because that $74,000 would never be negatively affected by the market. So by the time she was 97, she took out $162,000, and she has $71,000 left over as a death benefit to pass on to her loved ones. I mean, that's almost exactly as much as she put in. And let me get this straight. It could outperform 5%. It very well could. I told you I own 2 annuities. Both of them are Athene. One of them I had the bonus was lower back then. It was 11%. The very first year I credited, I got 18%. You know what I got last year on that annuity, Jim? 3.8%. Okay? So I just want everybody to understand, and I hope I'm being clear because I'm almost being a bit condescending now, right? Do not show hyper illustrated rates. That being said, what you're showing represents the illustrated rates as they are backcasted. It's your job to temper them and explain it and try to simplify it, which is why I strongly suggest using either an override number or sticking to S&P participation rates or caps. It keeps it so much simpler. Jim, that is it. That's the scenario. So I will pause. Are there any other color you want to enlighten on this or say on this? Or are there any questions about how we handled this scenario? It was a left-right scenario, right? We had the income slam dunk. We gave her a pay raise, and then we put her in a fantastic growth vehicle to offset RMDs and pass on as much as possible to her loved ones. So I'll pause there and ask if there's any questions.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to add a little color. I think as salespeople, as insurance agents, it's very natural to want to talk about the biggest number, the biggest return, the biggest scenario, right? We could, if all stars align, we could get you this. But as Sean said, and as if you talk to me one-on-one, that's not our philosophy of doing this. We believe in responsibility when we're talking to clients. So, I've had to have agents say, hey, talk about the guarantees. Yeah, you can show them the hypotheticals as may happen, might happen, but this is what will happen, and use that as the base of your sales presentation, or use a responsible rate that you add, like Sean did for the page we're looking at a 5% return. Folks, it's very possible that from time to time your client's going to get an 8, 10, 12% return, but it's also very possible 2 or 3 years out of 10 that they're going to get a 0 return on an indices. Right. So you need to temper expectations, and I'm a big proponent of under promising and over delivering, right? So the reason they're buying indexed annuities in the first place isn't about getting the best possible return, Katie bar the door, regardless of risk, right? They need to know that they're trading the risk aspect of the market for a more reasonable return. And that's okay, right? For most of the people, as they get closer to retirement, that's actually more important for them because their risk tolerance decreases greatly as they get closer to retirement age. So, just keep that in mind as you're talking to your clients. If you have questions before a meeting or a presentation or appointment, feel free to call me, call our team, and let us know. But Sean, I don't see, let me pop in the questions just in case. Folks, if you have a question on this scenario, type it in the question box. I saw somebody had their hand raised and took it down. So why don't we go ahead and introduce Ben. Folks, again, if you have a question, type it in the question box. We'll get back. We'll get to it on that scenario. We can always, scroll back through the slides to anything specifically you want to talk about. But I'm super excited to introduce you to Ben. We're gonna only call him Ben and not give you his last name or exactly where he is to protect his privacy. However, I can assure you, swear to you, would sign, do this in court. Ben is a real agent, okay, that works with Western Marketing. And we'll tell you his background, what he was selling, and kind of get through that. So, Sean, if you're ready, Ben, hop on and welcome.
Good afternoon.
Ben, how you doing? Great for the success you had, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
So Ben, we're going to go through 2 scenarios, and you actually have about 4 or 5 or 6, like you've caught fire momentum that you have submitted and are in process. And I want to be very clear. This is reality. What Ben's doing is he's asking as many people to dance at prom as possible, right? Just like he should. And some are going to say yes, some are going to say no. He's not getting too emotionally attached, and he is attacking it with with a servant's heart. You know, he just wants to go out and help. He's excited about what the products he has and how to help people. And so it doesn't mean that he's closed all these. One of them, we just got an update prior to the meeting, like 22 minutes ago. And it sounds like one of them is ready to close, which is very exciting. But Ben, before I go through the first two scenarios, we just pulled two random scenarios, one over here, one over there. Can you tell us about yourself, Ben? You know, as much as you want to share, but especially your background and what you've done, you know, over the last 10 years, what you specialize in. Give us a little bit about Ben, because I think that helps agents understand that this isn't everyone being some sort of hyper financial advisor who, and I hate to overuse that word hyper, but this financial advisor who, you know, has all these certifications and whatnot. Ben, there's a very good chance you're smarter than both Jim and I combined. It has nothing to do with that, but tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, my background, primarily construction, electrical background. I owned my own electrical and construction business for roughly 31 years and actually built my daughter's office here. So that's how I got into the insurance market. She thought maybe I was getting too old to do that anymore and thought I should work inside an office instead of out in the elements. So that's how I got started. And I've been doing it
So we
currently.
should probably hit up every IBEW person. I mean, we just hit a gold mine, right?
Right, exactly.
So someone who's an electrical and construction engineer that would be a great insurance salesman. No, I'm teasing, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. You would never think, okay, this translates to that, but that's Ben's background. So Ben, please continue on. Tell us a little bit more.
So she got me in the insurance business. I knew absolutely nothing about it. So I was kind of a little leery from the get-go. So her primary focus at that time was Medicare. So I got into the insurance business, learned about Medicare and so forth, and I've been in it going on my 4th year.
Excellent. And Ben, let's now dissect the two scenarios. And you had a few of them, right? I think you have like 6 in the works right now. You've caught a little bit of momentum. And we're going to call this scenario 3 as we go through. But we have in this situation, we have a male who is 67 years old. We're talking about $112,000 that you knew enough to ask when they said it came out of an IRA. Okay, so it's qualified money. So
Right.
Ben, real simple. You know, let's go through the playbook here. Who is this client? Tell us about them, and not just, you know, statistics, but tell us about them. Maybe what was their home like? Are they married? You know, try to be as visceral as possible so agents can almost project themselves into your scenario.
Right. He actually came into our office. He is, of course, past Medicare age. He continued to work and delayed Medicare. So he actually came in and talked to us about transferring from group insurance to Medicare. And during that conversation, what we've kind of found out is we have a Medicare client intake form. So naturally they come in, we get their name, address, current coverage, primary doctor, and so forth. But we felt like we were kind of leaving money on the table, that we needed to find a non-invasive way to basically find the money. So what we did, we added a couple questions to our intake form. Of course, one is if they're drawing Social Security or not, and how that's going to be paid through Part B, Medicare, and so forth. But we added 2 sections of that, and we added, you know, if they have any other forms of retirement funds, whether it's a 401k, a pension, IRA, or so forth, and please specify. And then the next question regarding that was if they were concerned about protecting those accounts or creating any type of lifetime income. So what that did, that allowed us to kind of be non-invasive. They would actually fill that out. So when they would sit down with us, we'd go through their information. We could kind of see what they have currently and then just strike up a conversation based on their reply.
Excellent. Yeah, and that's a variation of the golden question, right? You know, what do you have to protect your loved ones? What do you have to retire on? Is that money protected, right? And that's huge, because we have people that work 20, 30, 40 years, and then they stop working and they find that they can lose 10% of it in a week. And that's a pretty scary thing. So now in this scenario, the solution they settled on, right? Now you submitted to ask a specialist. Jim and his team came back, and we're leaving out some of the details here. We don't be too gratuitous with this, but
Right.
you came back with a very simple one, a MIGA, a multi-year guaranteed annuity. Okay, now MIGAs are the most boring, awesome, easy to understand annuities of all time. Maybe any financial product. If the market goes up, they grow by a fixed percent, let's say 5%. If it goes down, they go 5%. If it goes sideways, diagonal, it goes 5%. Backwards, 5%. It just grows 5%. Obviously, it's tax deferred because it's qualified. And then at the end, and you can take out X percent per year. Either it's the interest or 5 or 10%. They have a fixed amount that you can take out. So they're very simple products. And you sold them a MIGA. You sold them the Heartland National. I believe this is a 5-year MIGA. Is that correct? Or is this a 10-year MIGA that they locked in?
They were going to go 5-year on it. Yep.
5-year. Okay. And it was offering over 5%, like 5.8% or something like that. So
Yep.
what was their motivation? Obviously we do like FIAs, and if we're going to go pretty long term, like you start getting past 3 years, 4 years, an FIA is statistically going to outperform a MIGA if you look at historical performance of the market. But right now, there's some great MIGA rates. I think this one was quoted at 5.8%. So tell us a little bit about what the motivation was and why they settled on a MIGA.
Well, the motivation was he looked at his 401k and he actually lost 1% in it. So it's just basically sitting there, not doing him any good, exposed to market risk. So we actually did him a quote for what their Medicare supplement and so forth was going to cost every month and what his money could do in a multi-year guarantee. We compared what the interest earnings would be that he could take out every month, and that was kind of some of the motivation to help cover the cost of his Medicare and so forth.
And I know Heartland National. I know Chris. I actually went to the opening day Royals game with him and his team. Very great company. And I like what they do with that because they have a high performing MIGA and they tie it because they have such good experience in Medicare supplements, MedVantage. But they do a great job because they say, hey, you could basically pay for your Medicare off of the interest you earn in your funds, right, in your account. And I think that's a great sales pitch. So there's a little golden nugget for you. And it can be an FIA, right? We can do systematic withdrawals. There are funds that you can put in fixed accounts inside FIA. So you could allocate X amount to a fixed account, the other amount over. Another thing to think about, okay, is the bonus. Remember I showed you an 11% or 15% bonus? Imagine having someone who had $100,000, $200,000, you move it over there. Let's say 200, because I'm bad at math and I can tell you what 15% of 200 is. That's $30,000. How many years of their Medicare did you just pay for? Right? Makes sense? So do you see how Jim tied that, being a Medicare expert and an electrical worker? Perfect harmony. He tied it to the solution, and that was the sanity. That's what made sense. So I'm sorry, Ben, I think it's a Jim again. So well done on that. Well done on that. Look, and this is one that it doesn't matter, but it looks like it will close. MIGAs don't pay as much commission, but listen, servant's heart. We go out there and we help people. The money will take care of itself. Ben, can you take us through the last scenario? We're calling this scenario 4. I'll give you the lead up here. This is another male, 65 years old, $27,000 that was just in a savings account, right? You might be able to tell us where it came from. A little over $27,000.
Right.
Tell us about this one. Who were they? Give us the backstory. Tell us about them. How did you discover it? Did you do it the same way with that intake form? And then what was their motivation to the product? Because this one you presented an FIA. So walk us through this one, Ben.
On this one here, I believe this one was he just had basically money sitting in the bank. He tried to experiment a little bit with some CDs and so forth, and of course had to pay taxes on the earnings every year. So this was just kind of a chunk of change he had put to the side and just trying to get some accumulation with a little bit of protection on it. So.
Yep. And the product you landed on was the Accumulator Plus. So F&G, and we reviewed a very similar product F&G has. F&G, it's a standard FIA. Some of them offer a bonus up front. They're going to give you as much market participation as they can. You'll never have a loss when the market goes down. You lock in your gains every year. And based on current rates, again, we can temper these. We could say, hey, the market has been on fire over the last decade. Your expectations should probably be, and we're using that word a lot because we're trying to teach you. Your expectations should probably be tempered a little bit. But for a long-term growth scenario with a 10% annual ability to withdraw funds, and something that Ben talked about there, I don't know if you caught it, the ability to grow tax deferred. Did you all know that an annuity, including a fixed index annuity, is the only non-qualified product that grows tax deferred? The only one. That's hugely valuable. So he gets what we call triple compounding interest, and that is in your FIA brochures, right? I think you're looking at my screen, you're not looking at me, but those brochures that you can print out through the Annuity Resource Center, this is just such a wonderful tool that Western has put together. You can talk about tax deferred growth, triple compounding interest. So here we have a $27,500 premium, and we show no withdrawals because we don't know exactly what this gentleman is going to do with it. And based on average returns, by the time he's 90 years old, he is almost quadrupled it, quintupled it, whatever it might be. And again, temper that. Hey, it might not do that, but I assure you, Mr. Smith, you'll never sleep poorly at night because your money won't go down when the market goes down. Every year you get a gain, it's locked in. You can't lose it. And when the market goes up, you participate in it. You'll never beat the market. We don't know exactly how much the market you get, maybe 30%, 40%, 60%, right? But you'll participate in the upside. You'll lock in those gains. You'll never participate in the downside, and it's going to grow tax deferred. And if he chose to, Ben, he could convert it. Let's say he's 85 years old. He's grown this thing to 100 grand. He can convert it to lifetime income that he could actually pass on to his spouse, to his children, however he wants to carve that up. So, Ben, anything I'm leaving out on those two scenarios, or anything that you want to add that might give these agents who are watching and listening some confidence in asking these questions and sending in scenarios to the Ask a Specialist?
I would just say utilize Western Marketing and the ARC as much as you can. I knew nothing about annuities. I've been working with Jim quite a bit one-on-one, and I can say Jim's actions speak louder than his words. So just basically educate yourself. Don't be afraid to go out there and do it. The confidence will eventually come. Like I say, the last 2 days, total annuities, I'm around 358,000. So, I mean, it can add up in a hurry. The biggest thing is just the confidence level, I think. I would recommend going into ARC, earning your badge. I can tell you one thing, when I earned my badge, it changed things at the office a little bit, Jim. I don't have to make my own coffee or anything like that anymore. So there is a plus to that. So, of course, that's hypothetical. That's not a guarantee, but it does happen.
Yeah, I want to add something. Ben's a very humble man, and I've been blessed to get to know Ben since I joined marketing. But I can't reiterate enough. Ben and his daughter qualified for our agent trip with health premium, and we were on an agent trip for Western Marketing in September of last year, folks. So 6-7 months ago. And Ben literally came over to me and he said, look, I'm going to take these annuity things seriously now, because we had sort of talked about annuities. And I said, when you're ready, we'll get you there, and Ben is going to close within the next 7 to 10 days 4 annuities, like he said, $358,000. But Ben's also recently brought to me probably 8 or 10 other annuities that he will probably close some of and some won't. But I just want to share that, folks, the more you do it, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, the more you go to bat, the better your batting average is going to be, right? You don't go up to bat against Nolan Ryan for your first time and hit a grand slam, folks. It's just not how real life works. But if you keep practicing, you keep going to bat like Ben has had, because he's had 6 or 8 come before these 4 that are going to be his first 4 that have closed, that haven't worked out for him. And now he's getting the confidence. And I can tell from hearing him, and I'm going to get my annuity badge. By the way, Jim, I want to start running ads in Facebook on annuities and stuff like that. So just from somebody who's worked with Ben could barely spell annuity if you spotted him the A and the 2 N's, to where he's at today, it's pretty awesome to see. And you know, I personally think sky's the limit for Ben, but I also want to translate that into anybody else on this call. I think Ben's a very smart man, but you have to be smart to do what we do, right? And I think with the simplistic approach that Sean and I have been training you all, and then I can reiterate on a day-to-day basis, or the rest of our life and annuity team can help reiterate. You know, any of you, if you aren't doing annuities as your primary business now, I truly believe if you just keep getting up to bat, you bring your bat to the plate and you swing, sometimes you're going to strike out, and then eventually you're going to hit a single or a double. And then eventually you're going to hit that first home run like Ben is in now. And that's the fun time, right? When you're able to see the fruits of your labor, when you're able to help that client. By the way, you're going to get paid pretty well for it too. That doesn't hurt. But the fun part is really, hey, I got my first one. Hey, this one's coming through. The money takes care of itself. And that I think is really fun. Ben, would you agree with that assessment?
Yes. Yep. I would agree with that. Absolutely.
Awesome.
So Jim, let me finish with two last items.
Sure.
And then I'm ready to sign off, or if we have no questions. Real important, let's review this. Make sure you're updating, you know, your Medicare intake form or your what I call financial inventory, generic. Make sure you're updating and you're asking every single person, do you have anything that acts like life insurance? Okay. And then if they say yes, is it protected? That's exactly what Ben's doing. It couldn't be simpler. And then I want to point something else out. Jim is working very hard for you all behind the scenes. Jim and I have created 2 letters, FIA letters. Now, you could get a mailing list, you could send them out, but here's another idea. Take my annuity training course, 88 minutes, 11 videos, quizzes, Q&A, and you're going to feel very confident and you're going to be very compliant. And that's how we sell with ease and calmness. Okay. How about you print out 1 or 2 of those letters, and then when you do your annual reviews, right? Because you have to talk to these people all the time, hand them that. Oh, by the way, this is another option that we have. Or hand them the letter with the FIA quad fold. I'd like to talk to you about this after annual enrollment. Hand it to them, put them on a call list, and then start calling in January, February. Does that make sense, Jim? Right? Like, it doesn't have to be,
absolutely,
you know, carpet bombing. It doesn't. Make it part of your system, and then I think you'll see that what comes in is manageable, and we learn. It's tacit learning. We learn by doing. We learn as we grow and as we go. So if you haven't got a hold of those letters, if you're interested in it, Jim has helped create them. He has them. I hope you don't mind me saying that, Jim, because I don't know if you're ready to roll out necessarily. But take a look.
I've got them.
And update your forms. Yeah. So that's it for me. But I'm here to answer any questions, and hopefully Ben's still on the line too, so he can answer questions if agents have. Because Ben's the one who has the knowledge right now. Ask him any questions. I would strongly advise you to, please.
Yeah, folks. So if you have the questions, we do have one in here. But if you have any more, whether for Sean or I or for Ben, please ask him. So the question we have right now is from Ron, and it basically says, is there a requirement by the government to get annuity training by July 1st? Now, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, or Ron, correct me if I'm wrong. You're probably talking about the best interest standards and the suitability standards, or more than suitability. It's got to be more than suitable now. Your requirement by best interest standards is it has to be the best product you offer for the customer, regardless of any benefit to you as the agent, regardless of comp, incentives, trips, or whatever. So Ron, if that's what you're talking about, that is part of what's required. It's already required in most states, and I expect it to be almost national very soon. So yes, there is a requirement. You can take it. I think Reg Ed has the best interest training. WebCE may have it. We're sending a lot of people to Reg Ed to get it. So it depends on your state, because a lot of states are in force, but some are where they're still giving you a little grace period for where you have it. If you're hearing about it in your state, I would say knock it out. It is a very straightforward, simple course. And really that's the concept, right? Whatever you recommend to your client has to be the best for them, regardless of what your comp is, what your other incentive is. It's similar to, and I'm not going to go too far in the weeds, but it's similar to when I was a securities license rep, what we would consider a fiduciary responsibility, because it's got to be completely in their best standards or best interest, regardless of how it impacts you. So, if you need more questions or more information on that, Ron, I'm going to give our direct phone number here at the end to Western Marketing. Feel free to call us. We'll help you. Lizeldi, first of all, you're welcome. She just thanked us for this, and she's actually, Sean, I think it's awesome. She's looking forward to get her annuity badge this month, and she's still learning, but she's saying she appreciates the way we support our agents through the Ask a Specialist and the Annuity Resource Center. So, you're welcome. That's why it is. Folks, while you're saying thank you to us, keep in mind, you're how Sean and I stay in business, right? If it weren't for the agents on the street meeting with the clients, I'd be maybe trying to get an electrical engineering job or something like Ben used to have. So you're welcome, but thanks to all of you all as well, because you're without you, we aren't here. So thank you. We've got just a minute or two left. So again, if you have a question, now's the time to ask it. But keep in mind, again, we really appreciate you as our agents here at Western Marketing. If you have questions and we don't get to them here, and you think of something after, call. My name again is Jim Codney. I'm the National Sales Director. I manage our life and annuity team, but we've got amazing people, amazing marketers on our life and annuity team. We've got Amanda, we've got Tyler Marr, and we've got Deb. So you don't have to work with me if you want to talk to one of them. They are as well suited, sometimes better, depending on your personality. They're going to help you out. So, I think it's awesome, and Lizeldi, I'm reading your comment now. She has 2 people interested in annuities. As soon as she has her badge, she'll be in touch with us. So I think that's awesome. Definitely feel free to reach out to us. We'll take care of you. We'll help you with product recommendation, illustrations, help you. We can do almost anything except for sit across the table from the client to help you out with that. So utilize that Ask a Specialist when you're ready, and we'll definitely make sure you're taken care of. Now, folks, it does look like that's the end of the questions and comments. Again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for spending the last about 50 minutes with us today. Sean, as always, thank you, but really, Ben, thank you for your willingness to share your experience and honestly, your successes, because I think if I was on the other end of this webinar, that would be more important than almost anything Sean and I have said in the last 7 weeks is a real life agent that didn't have experience before we started this stuff, that could get on and tell me, folks, if you just try it and keep at it, it works. And hopefully that message from Ben came across. So Ben, thank you so much.
Yep, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ben.
And
thank you, Jim. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So with that, we're gonna call it a webinar, folks. Thanks a lot. The number here at Western Marketing is 800-852-7152. Again, 800-852-7152. all of you will receive an email follow-up with a copy of this recording as well as information on the series. One quick tidbit, Sean asked, we are scheduling F&G and Athene to do future webinars. We do have F&G scheduled. It just happened before this webinar. So it'll be May 2nd, Thursday, May 2nd at the same time, 1 p.m. Central. So be on the lookout for that. We do still have 2 more weeks of this series to go. But again, there may be a 1-week break or so, and then we'll have F&G. We're working with Athene and other carriers to get you valuable insight as well. So with that, thank you very much, everybody. Make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.